All right, here we go. Let's do this. I'm Temple, driver of the Sliding Knight S14, competing in US Drift Circuit's Pro-Am FD series here in Florida. And I'm all, just finished working on the car, trailer, golf cart, and stuff like that. Prepped and ready to go for the final round on October 28th. Can't wait to get back out on the track. But while I was working on stuff today, I was thinking, and while we're all out there competing to win, like we're there to compete, we're there to win, we're there to be the best, right? But part of that drive and enjoyment is also the story behind it too, right? It's being out there, what happened out there, getting to drive the car. There's nothing worse than not being able to drive. So I wanted to talk about the story that is OSW Round 3 US Drift Circuit, 2023. So let's rewind a little bit and go back to when Jackson actually announced that he was actually having a Pro-Am series. So that was December of 21, and that was the go button, right? I mean, we can go back even further, but let's keep to the more short story, right? So Jackson announced December of 21, hey, he's having a Pro-Am series in Florida. Going to be, an FD Pro-Am series, and that was the go button to actually get the car done. I've had the car for many years. Haven't really, in those years it was in and out of storage due to deployments and all other stuff. But it was like, all right, I'm still in school. I'm in my last year of school, but I can get this car done. And I'm going to get this car done so that at the very least I show up at the last round to, get my feet wet, right? I'm, never competed in professional drifting. Sure, I've done some, SCCA races and some time attack races, but that's not the same because you're racing against yourself. You're not driving against other drivers at that stage of those competitions. So, immediately started building the car, before it was just a roller. So the first thing that came to mind was, if this is a Pro-Am series, and if this is real on preparing us to go to the next step, right? Whether people want to go to the next step or not, I pretty much agree all of us want to go to the next step, then it needs to be at that level, right? It needs to prepare us, or it needs to test us. And what better way to test us than to actually do Orlando Speed World on the FD layout? Like that's it, right? If we can't do that, and we can't do it to the level that the Pro Spec guys, they did with Pro Spec, right? They did Pro Spec, Pro 2 and FD, then we're not ready to go to the next level, right? So he announced it, the calendar came out, and what do you know? OSW was on. It's like, sweet. So me and Rich went out there, live for the first round, and was like, all right, well, this is it. This is the standard. Like, we got to be able to do this. So I got the car done in around July of 22. And, as with all new builds, especially, this was really my first build myself that I did everything, except the cage. That I really did everything. So there was, of course, teething issues, but one thing that really stood out was how hard it was to shift that T56. So it's a T56 F-body transmission in here, not a Magnum or any of the other ones. It is a F-body T56 in here. And how hard it was to shift and get that car into fourth, and then actually getting it initiated on the bank properly. I had a couple of crap runs, but mostly there was more teething issues to be solved. So from that moment on, we knew, hey, we need to backwards plan on the 2023 calendar to do a more serious test day at the Oval. So, showed up at the last round in 22, had a shit round, but you got to start somewhere. All right, 2023 is coming up. So the event, as it's already passed. I wanted to get out there and test and do real laps and maybe some tandem, but I organized a private day. I filled out 16 slots. I rented both the oval and the skid pad. So the skid pad was running while I went to the oval, and actually Taylor Ray was in there too. So that was cool. It wasn't just me, in the oval by myself, but it was all about getting it done. Like, gotta learn it. Gotta learn how the car can do it, and that was just struggle bus hell. It's when you go back and you watch, pro runs, pro spec runs, and a lot of the guys, that ran, on the last round, they're able to get their car in the right gear. So short shifts through the gears, get it into the right gear, and then they kind of give it a clutch kick to break the tires loose, and then they flick it all right up on the high on the wall. I couldn't do that. The car doesn't make, even with the tire pressure way up there. I was running around 35 psi at the last round, just to make things work. The car just didn't want to do that. It doesn't have that 4.8. If it's not at $3,000 with the nitrous, it doesn't make any power. So I can't just give it a quick blip of the clutch kick. That was my downfall of round 2. I fell out of the nitrous window. So, Kevin, luckily Rich was able to sweet talk Mr. Kevin Lawrence out there. And, he was like, hey man, just fucking send it. Do a full rolling burnout and flick it up there. And if you don't get it, then you shut it down. And that was the light bulb. So now I knew how I had to get it initiated and into drift onto the bank so that, I could actually drive it. The rest was, riding high on the wall and hitting the clips and completing the course. That was minor details in comparison to getting the car into drift on the bank and be on a high, mid-high line. So that was July. And the only concern I had from then was, how am I going to do this rolling burnout, right? How am I going to do this rolling burnout and get it into drift when I still have to go through the start chicane? The start chicanes so far, especially at Sebring, have been super tight, super short and super tight. I even hit the clones on a couple of my qualifying runs and in my 32 battle with Brennan Cox. Like, our cars just barely fit through there. So I was concerned. I didn't know how I was going to be on the bank. Luckily, it wasn't nearly that bad, but I spent a ton of time on the sim, with our announcer John and announcer Alex. Got a car made in Assetto as well, where I gave them my dyno graph and was like, hey, here's my dyno graph. Like, that spike where it jumps 200 horsepower is literally because of the nitrous. That's how it is. So they put my dyno graph into a VDC car. Now, granted, that VDC car technically had a little more horsepower, but we won't go into those details. But the power band acted as my power band did. And that's all I did for those 3 weeks leading up to that round, was just, I got in the sim with them and just drove OSW. I kind of learned that if I flick it down, if I do a really big, sweeping initiation, which isn't really, it's really tough for the chase driver. I don't think it's a good initiation. But if I sweep it down and bang it through the gears and get it into fourth, it works. It's risky because if I fuck it up, I'm throwing the car up. I'm throwing the car up the bank and onto the wall. I'm not throwing it along the wall or, potentially, or down the bank. I'm flicking the car up towards the wall. So if I fuck something up there, the car is going up and at the wall, and I got to try and catch it and not hit the wall, versus, if you're on the wall and you initiate along it, if you fuck it up, the car's already kind of pointing down. So it's like, whatever, it's the only way I can do this. So let me scroll down on my notes here. So let's jump to the event itself. Went out there. Oh, before prior, 2 weeks prior, we also decided and did a bunch of wheel calculation math, wheel speed math with gearing and stuff, that it's possible to grab a used 4375, so 4.375 or 437 as many people call it, ring and pinion from Weir, and just rebuild the diff. So I had 2 diffs, like, yeah, I have a second diff and we can throw this together, great. It wasn't something that was thought about early on. It was something that I've talked about with my friends, Keegan and Rich, about what's the proper wheel speed for the OSW bank. But with the way the car is, with the power plant transmission, it's just like, I wasn't too serious about it. And then I got serious about it, 2 weeks leading up, and so slapped a 4375 gear, diff together, and got it in the car Wednesday night before the event, and was like, all right, well, let's hope it works. So, all right, event time. Practice. I got 1 practice lead lap, and it was actually a really good lap until I caught on fire and broke the rear diff. But I was able to get the car into 4th gear just before actually I had to do the transition. So before, with the 4.8, the stock S14 rear gear ratio, I was transitioning while shifting into 4th onto the bank. I was now able to basically get it into 4th right before flicking it up onto the bank. So it's like, yes, this can happen, this will work. But yeah, caught on fire. So that was awesome. So let's talk about that. So caught on fire, of course. OSW track staff sleeping on the job, but Jackson ran from the start line, put out the fire. All I knew is I was hearing sound from the rear, from something from the rear diff in the back. Had no idea that the oil pan just blew off another line. That's the second time, right? Blew off another line and completely stripped a hole, and I was just, oil pan was just leaking oil all over the place. Luckily, it happened right at the end of the track, right there at the end of outer 2. So sure, I oiled down OSW, but at least it wasn't on like on the course. So that sucked. Anyways, got the car back in the pits. This round Rich wasn't able to make it. Rich is kind of like my crew chief and my spotter. But he was basically, completely available via phone. So I also have my buddy Chris DeJesus, who I'm super close friends with, and he does autocross and some other stuff. And I'm trying to, and I also have Frank. So Frank is one of Rich's really close friends, and I've made friends with him over the years that I've moved up here. So the team this round was me, Chris, and Frank. So got the car back in the pits, and I was like, okay, I know what to do about the oil. I need to go find some stuff and see if I can, repair it. I was like, I need you, Chris, and Frank to communicate with Rich and try to figure out what's going on with the rear diff. If it's too iffy and we don't know what's wrong, I have the 408, and let's just slap the 408 back in there, and I'll figure it out while driving it. So the stuff that I ran around and tried to find in the pits to solve the oil and motor problem didn't work. So we sent Chris out to the closest Ace Hardware or Home Depot. I forget which was closer. I forget where he went to. But basically, we needed him to get a 3/8 NPT tap, 3/8 NPT plug, and the appropriate drill bit, which is that a 9/27 or something like that? Either way. So while he went to get out to do that, Um, that was just after Frank and him and Rich kind of all figured out what was going on with the rear end and got it tightened up. So I was like, all right, well, let's just hope it works, because we're not going to have time to test it and go out and do another practice lap. So while Chris went and got the tools, we finished cleaning off the car and got it back on jack stands and ready to, drill and tap the oil pan, as well as, just get the car prepped, because time was running out. Qualifying was coming up. So yeah, we were on the clock. Actually, Chris had perfect timing. By the time that we had taken apart some of the front suspension in order to be able to get the drill, to the side of the pan where it needed to be, he had just come back. I got it drilled, I got it tapped, I got the plug in there, and I did check. The first thing I did do when I came off track, while we were putting the car in the air, was I did pull the logs. And luckily, Chris, 38 PSI right at the end of the run, right before I shut it off, and all the, they came and hit me with the fire extinguishers. So I had confidence that the motor was fine. As far as anything else, because this is the second time I've been on fire this year now, whether it's wiring, foreshadowing, wiring or sensors or lines or anything, right? Because of just the fire nature itself, anything else that was wrong, I was like, well, I'm confident the motor's fine. Everything else, no idea. Got the car back on the ground. We were all prepped for qualifying, and I had 10 minutes before I had to be in grid for my qualifying run. So I drove the car around the pits. We listened for the rear diff. Rear diff sounded fine, so it was just time to send it. So got out there and lined up to do my first run, and the dreaded thing happened that I knew was the highest risk that was happening. Go to put it in the fourth, and the car didn't want to go into fourth. So it straightened right on entry. Pissed. I mean, I'm hot, I'm tired, I'm cramping. I haven't been off the ground or I haven't been out from under the car for, a couple hours now. And it was so I just slammed it back into fourth and was like, I'm completing this run to make sure the car works. And just went through the course. Came off and was like, well, I guess the car's all right. Temps look good, oil pressure looks good, the diff isn't whining, there's no smoke coming out of anywhere. I was like, all right, time to refit for the not so great qualifying, which I am 3 for 3 on this year so far. 3 for 3. I don't want to be 4 for 4. But anyways, refitted the car, got right back in line for the round 2 of qualifying for me now. And right when I started the car to go out to do, my burnout warm-ups, to warm up the tires, I noticed that the temperature of the car was at 250. It was I was like, huh, that's weird. Maybe there's an air pocket. Maybe just because I did a run and came off and the car just sat in the sun, waiting to go back out there, maybe something's not right. I was like, I'll see if it comes down when I go start warming up the tires. Go warm up the tires, pull up the line, look at the temperature, 238. It's like, okay, this is close enough. So the big reason that I'm concerned about the temperature is not because of these, it's a 4.8 iron block, right? It'll be fine. It'll handle it, right? It'll be okay. But my car's never gotten that hot. Hot lapping on the skid pad, or doing anything else, the most I've ever seen has been 230. And so it's just kind of was like a little worried about it, mostly because of the nitrous, right? So the way that the Holly works and a lot of other tuning is that you can change the timing map dependent on temperature, right? So if the car's hot, you're going to pull timing out of it, to kind of save things and not not make as much power, make as much heat, and do as much wear to everything that's going on. So I was more concerned about the timing being pulled up to a point where, if it's at 260 degrees, I'm shooting a 125 shot of nitrous in there. I was like, I don't know what the nitrous is going to do with the timing, so I don't want to risk it. But at 238, it's not quite too far to the right of the map on the timing curve, so I was like, all right, I'm just going to send it. I don't care what happens, going to send it. So get out the start line, flick it down the bank into second, hit third, and I'm like, all right, this thing better go in the fourth. And as soon as I put it in fourth, I was like, oh, it is on. Let's go.
Now we're seeing John Temple scrubbing his tires up. He had a issue going on an initiation on this first qualifying round. Let's see if he put some points up. I talked earlier how he has been putting the work on the sim. Let's see if it transfers over and actually come out here and qual and try to get into the bracket. But we're waiting for the lights. And here we go. John Temple out here with that S chassis, white, black, and orange, coming in with a nice big flick into that first outer wall. There we go, John, coming in smoke show all the way through that first outer zone, coming in, diving into that first inner clip. Money going into the second inner clip, using some slight e-brake going into that final outer zone, riding that throttle all the way around. Oh, mercy, and that's how you do it, baby. I think the sim worked.
No, I know he's got to be happy about at least doing a redemption run right there. And if he can just remember how that felt and repeat it the rest of the day, I think he's going to have a pretty good day ahead of him. I see you getting excited about that there. I know this runs close to you, too.
And just flicked it, and I had the really good line, too. Flicked it right up to the start of outer zone 1. I was like, I got this. I got this. Here we go. And it was actually a really good qualifying run. Felt great. I was in the no fuck zone, just wanted to get it in fourth and get it into drift and do what I know I can do and what I've been practicing for the last 3 weeks. And that felt awesome. I crossed the finish line at the end of hour 2 and was just pumped, just absolutely pumped. So I was like, all right, I'm in the show. Great. Now let's see what's going on. Look down at the dash. Temp says 209. Okay, sweet. Whatever it is, probably worked it out. So I'm pulling off. I'm like, all right, sweet. Let's see who we're gonna battle. Let's get ready for tandem practice. I really need the tandem practice. I need the tandem practice because I've never done tandem on the oval before. Never, ever. So I need to do it, 1, to actually experience it and see what the hell I need to do on the run-up. But 2, the way that I've been doing it in the sim is I've been playing it safe and just running third gear. I was more focused on being able to get the car in drift and do a good job on outer 1, because then the rest would fall into place, versus my chase. So if I run the car in third gear, at least from the year prior, doing shakedown of the car, and from the sim, that third gear works. It's not that great, it's not that fast, it's really hard to get the car high on the bank, but you can run a mid-low line at low angle and it works. It's but it works. I was like, so I just want to make sure, go out there and do third gear in the chase, and just do I get absolutely taking the Gapplebees? Does the car even want to drift it in third? With the 437 that's working, right? So now I've lost more wheel speed. Does the car even want to do it in third? Can I keep it in drift on the bank in third, or is it going to want to straighten up? So there's just a lot of questions. And I had a backup plan, but I didn't want to enact the backup plan if the car would work in third. So got the car in the pits, and right before I pulled into my pit and my trailer, temperature shot up to 250 again. It's like, what the fuck's going on? I don't understand. So refitted the car, doused the motor and the radiator with a whole bunch of bottled water. So all right, I'm not touching this until I can touch it with my hand, because in that way I'll know if the temperature sensor is even working. Do I need to change the temperature sensor? Is there something else wrong with the cooling system? I don't know yet. So, 30 minutes go by. It's about 15 minutes to tandem practice. I was like, all right, I can touch everything with my hand. Everything's cooled off. Let's see. Get in the car, fire it up, and the temperature sensor again read 209. It's like, well, I'll let it idle and see what happens. Tandem practice is in about 10 minutes from now. And 2 minutes later, 245. It's like, all right, something's not right. Let's try and bleed the system. So me and Frank bleed the system, and there was no air in the system. Everything was fine. So I was like, all right, I got sensors in this box. We're gonna change the sensor. So as I'm pulling the connector off of the sensor, right? Because it's got the little clip. I lift the clip, and I'm pulling it, and it's a little snug in there, right? Because it's they're not weather packed, but they have the weather sealing around them. As I pull it off, the entire sensor just rips itself and leaves itself in the block. I think I have a picture somewhere. I'll try to put it up on the screen or something. It's like, wow, great. Tandem practice has already started. So there's an hour of tandem practice, and then I know that I'm in the 32 battles because I didn't qualify high enough, right? I'm in the 32 battles, and I'm actually the first 32 battles. So I'm the first battle up right after tandem practice is completed. It's like, all right, what are we gonna do? So I don't have reverse drill bits. I don't have anything to get it out. But luckily it wasn't really leaking. And hey, guess what? We're LS. We got two of the same heads on either side of the motor. So that was good and bad news. The good news is, yeah, I got another head that has a temperature sensor in it. Let's use it. The bad news is that that head and that temperature sensor is broken. I just used it as a plug. That was something I broke a long time ago, putting the motor together and trying to get the headers to fit in the car and whatnot, and just kind of said, whatever, I'll just leave it. I'm not worried about it. So I was like, all right, Frank, you are gonna change the passenger side temperature sensor, which is a bitch to get to because it's sandwiched in between at the very end of the head. So it's in the very head of the back. And right back there, I have my water lines coming through the firewall. You have the exhaust manifold, and my fuel lines kind of come up near there. But yeah, they're close, but at least they're in the way of your hand getting in there, right? It's like, all right, Frank, I got the shit job for you. Need you to change the passenger side water temperature sensor. Here you go. I was working on undoing the Holley wiring harness to see if it would even reach, which, guess what? Doesn't reach. So now I'm scrambling in my trailer through all my wiring stuff to see if I can extend it. And basically that's what I did. I had some leftover wire that I used to just trick the fuel relay to and I'm like at the dyno to pump out the 93 and put in E85. So I cut the Holley harness for the temperature sensor, crimped in, those crimps, just pet peeve, that looked awful. Crimped in the wires, extended the sensor, we plugged it in, started the car, and temperature was right. So it's like, yes, great. Because I wasn't going to run without a temperature sensor because the Holley won't do closed loop and also certain timing portions of the map without the car being at least a minimum of 160 degrees. And there was just no way for us to zip tie the sensor somewhere to get good temperature readings. So went back immediately as soon as it was good, got in the car, got suited up, and got right on grid. And of course, steam is coming out of the engine bay from the water that came out of both of the temperature sensor ports, and just went out there and got a chase lap in, which, to be fair, it checked all the boxes that I wanted to check, but it really wasn't a tandem lap. I was behind Maroon Corvette, who doesn't have a front bumper, having a brain fart. I was behind him, and he shut it down 3/4 of the way through the bank, and I didn't follow close because I just wanted to make sure that the car was going to check boxes. Did it do third gear? Yes. Did it do it all the way through the bank without having risk of straightening up? Yes. Did it complete the full course? Yes. Was it slow? Yes, but I'm not going to. Maybe I can click it into fourth at the end of outer 2, and maybe that'll be good enough. So, great. And that happened with 10 minutes left of tandem practice. So far, we have done 1 lead practice lap and caught on fire, 2 qualifying runs, so 2 more lead lap practices, right? 1 I didn't get in the fourth, and 1 beautiful one. And then I've done 1 chase in third gear. So it's like, well, here we go. Time to just put it together and send it against Steven. So yeah, I got back, had enough time to hit the bathroom, refit the car, and just lay down in the trailer for about 10 minutes, kind of stretch all the cramping hands and whatnot, and just go out there and battle Steven. And man, was that just, that was the moment. That was the moment. That was the story. It's just like, we have all been busting our asses all day. Everything we have done, we have, perished through or triumphed through. We're still in the show. The car is still working, and we still get to compete. We still get to go out there and do the thing. So I was just, didn't care what was going to happen against Steven. I was just going to give him hell and see what I could do. No tandem practice. Don't know how that's going to go. For me in the chase, and just give him the best, most gangster lead run I can do, because I know that he can put it on my door, which he did at the very end. So I chased first, right? We were both in the not so great, or the second qualifying. We both zeroed. We both didn't shift into get our cars into the right gear, and ended up straightening on initiation. But so I chased first. He leads. So let's recap a little bit into that. I was too slow off the start line. I didn't anticipate, and I guess that just comes with seat time and actually getting to chase somebody on the bank, but I did not anticipate how fast that he was actually gonna run up to initiation, especially with how slow my run up is, because I'm just in drift the whole time. So I was pretty far back on outer 1 on initiation, so I just drove midline and just kind of gave it hell. That was about halfway through outer 1, while I'm on that mid line in third gear. That's when I realized, was like, man, if I had more practice, I would have realized that third gear wasn't going to cut it, and I just was on the limit of the wheel speed, and I was not gaining. There was no more left in the car to gain. So I was just like, oh well, it is what it is. I got to do with what I can do in the moment. He hung it out actually pretty wide out after outer 1, which caused me to follow him, which ended up being a big mistake. So he stayed really wide. I was midline, was like, okay, well, if you're staying wide, I'm going to keep following you out there. And what ended up happening was, as he dove down the bank and into inner 1, I was now behind him instead of inside of him. And before I even got off the bank, I couldn't see anything. I was just fully smoked out. So as soon as the smoke hit, it was just like, okay, it's all about timing from here on out and hope that I point the car in the right direction. Come off the bank, like, okay, no, it's not time. The car won the transition, and I was like, it's not time to transition. So, you know, I kept the car in drift for a little bit longer and then flicked it across. And my mimic was actually pretty good. I actually transitioned when he did, but man, was I on the completely wrong line. As soon as I came out the smoke, it was just like, shit. So, whatever, I'm gonna finish the run. So came out the smoke. It was just going. I hit the inner clip with the rear of the car, that far off. Whatever, finished the run. It's like, okay, well, I'm on a 0. Third gear wasn't enough. Made a big mistake and lost the spoke and not staying inside onto inner 1. Like, all right, well, let's go, Steven. Time for you to put it on my door. Line up in the lead. And this is the first time now that I've done a back-to-back run, right? So normally, like even in the private day testing, I would go and do a run, and it would only be mostly the bank. I would do the bank, get to inner clip, and then shut it down. Or if I did a full run, it was because the tires were basically done and I was going to come in and change them. So this is the first time that I'm doing back-to-back runs on the same set of tires on my full lap. So I lined up in the lead and I was like, okay, I think the tires are going to be a little greasier than, you know, the car's already loose, right? I already have the car super loose. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to anticipate that the car is going to float a little bit more. And especially since I'm flicking it up the bank onto the wall instead of along it, last thing I want to do is flick it up there, be planted, and the car just not want to drive down. So I was like, all right, well, worst case, you know, I'll on my transition, you know, because it's not really initiation anymore because I'm already in drift in second gear, coming down the bank on the run up. It's like on the transition, I'm just going to point the car a little bit further out towards outer 1 instead of at outer 1 in anticipation the car was going to float up. And as soon as I clicked it into fourth and transitioned, the car didn't want to float at all. The car just did what it was doing, you know, the other 3 lead runs that I've done the whole day. I was like, shit, well, I can fix this. So about halfway through outer 1, I brought it back up into the zone. I could have put it on the wall, but there's really no point, especially with the 0. And, you know, I didn't want to drive in the marbles. I didn't want to risk the car. I just knew where the car needed to be to put me in the zone, not deep in the zone, but in the zone. And I just got it back up there about halfway through and, you know, drove the rest of the course. Hit inner 1, hit inner 2, got on the throttle early at inner 2 as well, which was great. So I had like a good line across the middle of OSW. And as soon as I got it settled into outer 2 and on throttle, normally in the lead, you know, at least on qualifying and other runs that I've done, it's just you kind of pedal it a little bit to make it kind of, you know, nicer. No point in sitting on limiter. I did not care. I just left it at full throttle and just pinned it through the line. I was like, I'm going to go through the finish line and out to the other bank. Like, I don't care. I'm just sending it. And had no idea that he was on my door, you know, that whole time. And actually door tapped me. No idea. So that was it. And OSW for us was over. But, you know, I said it at the very beginning, and I'll say it again. But it's about the doing that's enjoyable. You know, sure, I may not like to work and wrench on the car, and I'm a shitty welder. But if you're not out there doing it, you got to do something to get out there and do it. And, you know, being able to do makes everything else more enjoyable. I would repeat that day all over again. Catch on fire, rummaging through the pits, drilling, tapping under the car for an hour and a half, fixing the diff, you know, having the water temp sensor problems, and I'd go through it all again. Yes, I want to win, but the camaraderie, the team, the success, the failures, the issues, the hurdles, the redemption. To go back out there to qualify after people saw me catch on fire, it was just like, wow. All right, he's still here. That was awesome, and that made it, great. So I felt that it needed to be shared. Sure, this is a partial recap of OSW 2023, USDC round 3. But it was an epic event for me, for Rich, even though he wasn't there, for Chris, for Frank. It was awesome. Put in the car, even though we were packed up early and got put in the trailer, in the 32 battle, it still was great. And I'm super fired up for round 4. Last round at Sebring. OSW for me, leading up to it, was more of that, this is going to suck. I need to get through it. The motto going into that day was, today we are embracing the suck, just an Army thing, right? We're just going to do what we need to do, get through it, execute what we know we can execute to the best of our abilities, and get her done, get the job done. And which is now turned into OSW. I'm looking forward to OSW next year. Sure, I'm going to have a lot of stuff in the works. Not running this 4-8 next year, but I'm looking forward to OSW next year. I'm not concerned about it. It'll be a good event, and it'll be fun. So that's it. Thanks for listening. This is Temple, and see you at Sebring for round 4.